And so we'll start with some explanation of what this is all about for those of you who are new to this. And then we will go right into the storytelling, and we're going to break the storytelling into two parts. So there will be 5 stories consecutively that I will play. One of them is being performed live, as far as I know. I think Leroy is performing his story live. Then we'll have discussion, and then we'll have the other 4 stories. So there's a total of 9 stories that are being told today and that we're discussing together. Okay, I think we're good to go. So I'm going to put in the Zoom chat here the order of today's family stories. So to just introduce myself first, and the guy sitting next to me. My name is Paul Lachelier. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder and the director of Learning Life. And you guys are joining a special event, essentially, where we are hearing stories from 9 stories from 7 different countries on somewhat different topics. And part of the challenge here will be for you guys to kind of figure out the connections between these stories, the ways in which they're similar and they're different when we have conversation. The person sitting next to me is not a family member, but he might as well be. It's my friend Michael, who's interested in kind of learning about what is going on with the Family Diplomacy Initiative. So just to recap kind of order of things, I'm going to explain a little bit about the Family Diplomacy Initiative for those of you who are new. And then we will go into 5 stories, which I will play consecutively, one after the other. They're 5 minutes or less each. Most of them are going to be recorded stories. They were pre-recorded, in part because we wanted to ensure that you had a clear, you could hear them clearly. And then we're going to have discussion of those stories. And then we're going to go into the final 4 stories and have discussion after that. So that, I think, is it for that. Let me share with you just briefly about what this is all about. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with what we do, the Family Diplomacy Initiative is part of Learning Life. Learning Life is an educational nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. in the United States. Our core mission is to try to develop learning communities in different parts of the world. Here in the United States, a democracy learning community, and internationally, our Family Diplomacy Initiative. So this storytelling is part of our Family Diplomacy Initiative. This is an effort in the long term to engage, to develop a core of volunteer family diplomats across the country who can advocate effectively for the needs, concerns, and aspirations of families from their different vantage points in the world. So the Family Diplomacy Initiative is not an in-person thing. It is strictly online. And it is, excuse me, I'm letting people in as they join. So hold on a second. So it is strictly online, but the internet allows us to reach a large number of people across the world. But we are serious about training family diplomats. And so the people you're going to hear from today are people who are beginning to get that training in family diplomacy, particularly focused on learning about citizen diplomacy across the world and about what's happening in families across the world. So we started this training in July, on July 10th of this year, and the training ends on October 30th of this year. Today and next Sunday are the culmination of that training, in part, particularly the storytelling part of the training, which started in late August. And so you are hearing the developed stories of our family storytellers today, or at least 9 of them of a total of 17 of them. There are a total of 17 from 13 different countries across the world, and you're going to hear from 9 of them today that are with you here, and we'll be able to answer your questions when we get to discussion. So I'm going to just cut and paste a little. If for those of you who are interested in becoming involved, if you know somebody who is interested possibly in becoming a family diplomat, one of our family diplomats, please have them check out this this particular page. And yes, Yaz, you should be taking attendance if you don't mind. I just put in the Zoom chat, you'll see that if you want to learn more information, that link takes you to this page, and it indicates the various ways in which people can get involved in the Family Diplomacy Initiative wherever you are in the world. Without further ado, we are going to get started. And we're going to get started, I believe, with the only live performance of the family story that we're going to have. The rest are going to be recorded. And so I am going to ask Leroy if he can hear me. Leroy is joining us from Liberia and is going to be talking with us about the power of single mothers. Leroy, are you ready?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to put you on speaker mode here so we can focus on you. All right, you are ready. You're ready to go.
Yeah. Can I start now?
Yes.
All right. Sitting beside me here is my little brother, Josiah Kwe, here with me in Monrovia, Liberia, and my name is Leroy Kwe. I'll be speaking pertaining to a story from my family, and my story is entitled "The Power of Single Mothers." All right. So in 1998, my mom, Evelyn Cindy, and my dad, Jeremiah, came together as one body to have a family. So they both started life in 1998 and continue with one accord in one unison, making commercial garden, feeding the family, feeding other extended family, and bear their first child in 2000. So after they bear the first child, they continue with their struggle and hustle together. But then late 2007, my dad decided to marry because maybe he felt my mom wasn't enough for him, or my mom was an old woman, or my mom was not too much socialized. So he decided to get another wife that he would be more connected to. So my mom decided to go against this idea of having another woman in the home while she's still alive, while she's still bearing children with my dad. So she decided to confront this new woman. But unfortunately for her, this new woman decided to fight back at my mom, not just fighting with her hand, but she used instruments like knife and scissor to, gap my mom on her hand. She decided to use the material to even try to juggle on her hair here, but fortunately rescue her, and she was not able to chop my mom on her neck, but she was able to just cut her on her hair here, and my mom was hospital. So after my mom recovered from this pain, her parents decided not to allow her to return back to her husband's home, but rather to go in their maternal home, that is her parents' home, so that the husband can come and make things my mom's parents before carrying my mom back to his house. But then unfortunately for my family now, my mom, my dad refused to come for my mom. So both in her home and in my father's home, because 2 of us left with my father and this man left with my mom. He was 2 months old when the incident occurred. So he left with my mom and she went to our family home. But then her family decided not to support her because they felt she was with her husband, and she left from her husband's home and returned to their home. So there was no support. None of them could even help. they could not even stand to even send her back to school and sponsor her in school. So she took this as a challenge and decided to sponsor herself. She sold gasoline and few other things, petroleum oil, and sponsor herself to school. So while sponsoring herself, we were in our father's home suffering. In the new woman brought in by my father, we were suffering bitterly. So she couldn't bear this pain. She decided to bring all of us to herself. So when she took us from our father's home and carried her with her in Ganta City, one of the Liberia political subdivision, she decided to learn some catering. So she learned few catering like baking, few other things in the home. So she decided to make bread where we will go and sell and come and sponsor ourselves in school, pay the fees of other children, including the children from our own self and few other relatives. She decided to sponsor them in school. So today, my mom, after her graduation in 2013, she now decided to teach in the school she graduated from. So when she decided to teach in the school, she was raising funds, sending us to school, including people who refused to sponsor her in her time of difficulty. She decided to sponsor those people and even extend help to her parents who refused to send her to school. So after all those things, my father, who refused now to help us to even come for my mom from her parents' home to return her to his home, decided to give some of his children. I'm talking about my step sister and brothers. He decided to give some of them back to my mom to live with her. And today, as we speak, my mom is taking care of every one of them, providing food, clothing, shelter, everything, including schooling. She's training all of them to school. And currently, my mom, brothers and sisters, some of them are also living with her today. So I'm saying this to say it is always necessary to sponsor or to help those single parents who either their husband might die or their husband might maltreat them to leave their married home and return to their parents' home. It is necessary for the family to help them in that direction, because those people have a hidden power. And that hidden power, if we help them, definitely they will develop those power and they will be able to take care of the family, the rest of the family tomorrow. Their success can speak for them. So it's necessary for us to help them so that they can succeed and revenge through their success, not the muscle power. So I want to say many thanks to everyone. And this is my story.
Awesome, Leroy. Thank you. I want to emphasize that you guys are welcome and in fact encouraged to pose questions. And I'll ask our interns to do this as well. Please pose questions in the Zoom chat. We will get to your questions after we've gone through the first 5 stories. And so please use the Zoom chat. The next story we're going to hear is from Aaron, who is joining us from Ghana. And he is going to be speaking with us about education and family unity. This story is going to be a recorded story. And so I am about to play it for you. And it is strictly audio, so you will not see any visuals. For some of these stories, most of the stories are video, but some of them are audio. And in this case, you're going to just hear Aaron's story by audio. And hold a second.
The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. These were the words of Bob Marley. 4 songs and tales from the firesides were tools for teaching moral lessons and training for transition into responsible adulthood. This was the formal education we had. This was how we learned in Chome, a settler community in Ghana. The sound of the talking drums signaled the arrival of some very important personalities into the community. The DO, a district representative of the colonial governor, always accompanied by a native assistant known as the clerks. Dressed in their formal outfit, well-ironed khaki shorts, white shirts, bow ties, and neatly polished black shoes. were symbols of privilege and aspiration for the children. William, the first son of Togo Adom, the paramount chief, observed that neither his uncles or his father, Tete and Yao Mensah, could interact with the Europeans unless with the aid of a clerk. The highest a black man could go in the civil service under the European administration. William's desire to acquire formal education became stronger, and nothing would stop him except a lack of opportunity. With a deep frown on his face one morning, William stormed the father's palace. He asked his father why he and his siblings could not acquire formal education to become clerks, teachers, and police officers. The answer, my son, formal education is for the rich. Little William was not satisfied, so he proceeded to talk to his uncles. The answer was the same. Disappointed, he told the uncles to do something about the situation. Our elders have a saying, to travel is to learn. Yao Mensah, who was the youngest of his uncles, had traveled for business purposes and was aware of the benefit of investment in children's education. He subsequently addressed his brothers and told them about his experience and the cost of not being educated, and suggested that they could all pool resources together to make William's dream come to life. After all, knowledge is better than wealth, in the sense that you will have to look after wealth, but knowledge tends to look after you. The brothers agreed and tasked William to ensure his success. Living by tenets of an African proverb, he who learns teaches. They wanted assurance that his new journey will have a multiplying impact on the family and the community. After several years of studies, William became a teacher instead of a clerk. He sponsored Martin Tete, who also became a teacher, and the two concurrently sponsored others. Some of those they sponsored became clerks, soldiers, nurses, and other professionals. This is how formal education came to be a tool for development in Chome. William retired as a principal head of one of the teacher training colleges in Ghana. I am a proud nephew of William, a graduate of the best and the first university in Ghana. Thanks to Yao Mensah, whose advice and unselfish character had brought about this attainable achievement. I thank William for living up to the agreed principle, for there is an African proverb that says, one who eats alone cannot discuss the taste of their food with others. Because of William and those after him, I have an opportunity to impact the development of my community.
Great. So that was Aaron from Ghana, who was talking with us about education and family unity. Next is Itai from Zimbabwe, who is going to be speaking on family and leadership. And in this case, it's kind of governmental leadership. And so his story is via video. And so I'm going to hold on a second, share my screen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Itai, and I'm coming from the beautiful country, Zimbabwe, a breadbasket of Africa. I just want to share with you a story of a man whom I know. Why? These are the questions whom people still have today. Why? Oh, how cruel can this world be? People who fight and give their all the best to uttermost groanings of a new beginning and hope for a change that will even never come to pass. Why are the rich getting richer Why are the poor getting poor? However, with all this filth and cruelty, the power of faith cannot be outcasted. It started off as a normal Tuesday morning of the 23rd of June 2008. As usual, kids were just playing outside in the streets when 4 men suddenly appeared in the front of the house, dressed in suits and sunglasses. We all know what that means. They parked their unregistered black Mercedes and the kids stopped playing. And the one child shouted, "Mama, Mama, Mommy, there are people outside the gate." Oh, Samson, who used to work for the government in the Secret Service that held a confidential information about the country, gazed through the window, realized that his greatest fears actually come to his doorstep. It's very sad this was the last time when he saw his 3 kids and couldn't even say goodbye to his beautiful wife who was in the shower. Samson served his country with a pure heart and a great effort. Everything turned south after he realized how dead, rotten, ugly, corrupt the system he served was. He took a stand as an activist, defending people's rights and helping them to fight for a change. This jeopardized his service to the country as he joined a group of movement for democratic change, and people seeing him as their only hope for a change. Still at this time, his wife and the kids had no clue about where their father is. Before these guys took him, he was flagged as the most wanted criminal in the country. Things became ugly and difficult for his wife and the kids when they were trying to survive without their father. And their father, he was the only breadwinner in the family. Things turned dark to the wife when she was trying to feed her kids. What happened when a father is normal, especially when we ask questions that we do not have answers? Samson's daughters, they turned into beasts into the communities. They became prostitutes in order for them to survive. And his only son, who was the last born, he turned into drugs because in the house there was no father who could even look after them. Things became very ugly. Even the mother, when she was trying to feed the family, things were just difficult. This happens especially when we have power hungry in the country. So this jeopardizes the community, this jeopardizes everyone because things turned dark into this family. I hope if we look after ourselves, if we take care of our citizens, everything or every bad things will never come to happen in the countries and in the communities where we are. May the Lord God bless us as we are taking care of our citizens and our families and our communities. Thank you.
All right, that was Itai from, hold on a second, let me just, from Zimbabwe, talking about family and leadership. We have just 2 more stories before we turn to discussion. So again, use the chat to try to figure out what's, ask questions. There may be some of these stories which don't entirely reveal or open up questions as to what's going on or what the purpose was, or else by all means use this time to kind of write in your questions in the Zoom chat. I am going to share with you the next story, which is, hold on a second, let me get to the right place. There we go. Chloe from the United States, who is going to be talking about family and health. Okay, hold on a second and let me share my screen.
I'm the daughter of two Iranian immigrants. Both my parents immigrated here shortly after the revolution in search of better opportunities and a better life. As we can see through current events, the revolution has significantly changed the country for the worse. When coming here, they met each other. Although a little bit before meeting each other, my father had his first kidney transplant. Growing up, I never knew he had a transplant or faced many health issues, as my parents basically thought that ignorance was bliss as I was a child. And many of my other family members have gone through very significant health challenges, including cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, just to name a few. And so as he went to the hospital often, I never thought anything of it, or I never thought it was out of the ordinary, as he wasn't the only one. Although when 8th grade rolled around, things had started to change. I remember going to a little cafe outside my school and my mother sitting me down and just telling me that he was in need of a second transplant. They didn't know exactly what to do, as they had gone through many American doctors and they had all told them that he would need to wait 14 years to find the perfect match or somebody willing to do the procedure. And until then, he would need to go on dialysis, which is an incredibly excruciating process that takes hours out of your days and is just incredibly painful. However, I didn't really understand that at the time, and just really did not know what to think of the whole situation. However, my father had his first kidney transplant in Iran, so they figured they could check there, go there, and hopefully have another solution. So my father had the privilege of being able to fly there without exactly telling me what he was doing. And he put his name on a long list of people who needed organs to get organs and go through that process. In Iran, it's not illegal to sell your organs, as many people do so in return for phones or really any other basic resource, as many people don't have access to those things. At a certain point, my parents were notified that somebody was in fact willing to do their procedure and did have a kidney that matched my father's blood type and all that kind of stuff, which was a miracle in itself. I remember at the time, my father just seemed numb. It seemed like nothing was really going through his head. And when he wasn't numb, he just seemed in pain. So we took him to the airport and he didn't exactly say goodbye, and I couldn't understand. But I later found out that he simply couldn't. And so he went there, had the procedure, which truly was another miracle. However, after the procedure was over, there were many challenges. Many of the health professionals did not have gloves and there was no pain reliever, so he ended up bleeding out much of the time, and things like that. So we weren't sure if he would make it or not. However, he did, and since that day, we consider it his second birthday, and we've all been much more grateful and just know exactly how difficult the healthcare system is across the globe. I would say that if you know anyone who is ill or is going through health challenges just like my father, just to be there for every step of the way. And even if you think they don't care, or even if it doesn't come across that they do, they really do. And just being there for them makes all the difference. And really never give up. Make sure you've tried all your options and in search of solutions for these challenges, as one might come across and might change everything for the better.
All right. And the final story before we move to discussion is, so that was Chloe talking about family and health. We have Tadiwa talking about family and disability. We're going to end on a somewhat somber mode on this before we turn to discussion. So this is Tadiwa from Zimbabwe.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tadiwa, and I'm from Zimbabwe, and I'm going to be presenting my story today. At least you thought it was an easy way out, leaving us to fall. Now we are broken. I see other families happy. Then I remember I can't have that happiness. You saw living the physical world has robbed us the true meaning of family. I thought you were tough. I thought you would not be easily broken. I thought you would stand it all, but you couldn't. Now that you're gone, you're broken, scattered all over. There's no one for me to call baby brother anymore. Nothing seems to be right with us without you. We're now like a dry tree, done serving its purpose. All the memories of you still shine like the stars. Even though you're not there, they still move like the clouds in the sky. Sometimes we ask ourselves why you did it. Then remember that it was what you leaned for. To leave this world, to go where there are no eyes, no mouths to judge you. To go where you feel accepted, where you feel like you belong, to sleep for eternity. To be in your own path that is different from ours, and we respect that. Of course, you were different, but you were part of us. Sometimes I wish for you to be here, then again, remember you are probably at a better place. You don't deserve what you went through because you were unique and different in your being. We ask ourselves why you kept quiet about it. Then remember that you didn't. You told us when you isolated yourself. You told us when you needed yourself more than you needed us. But we didn't pay attention. It was just an insecure disorder that you had. Very few understood that you were capable. You may have been slow, but you were capable of many things. You saw things differently, but very few understood. You didn't have to end your life. Yes, you were different, but that was what made you powerful. If only society had accepted you, you would be stronger. Autism does not mean you are a rotten tomato. It just means you are powerful and you have hidden treasures within you. Maybe we'll see you again, maybe someday. At least that's what people say. Or it's just grief speaking. I don't know. But I really wish I could see you again. But I don't know how I'll be able to see you again. Continue resting in peace, my brother. Thank you all.
Okay, we are going to turn to discussion, and we're going to take about about 15 minutes or so, not too long, to discuss. So in this discussion, if you could raise your hand electronically, so use the reactions button, which you should see on your screen, and click the reactions button to get the proper hand gesture. But you want to raise your hand so that I can point to you and we can go in order. Who would like to speak first, whether it's a question or a comment? Any of the storytellers, by the way, can also comment, but it would be great to hear your questions. Nate, who is joining us from the USA.
Yeah, the first story I heard really,
Nate,
or how I'm leeway to yeah.
Nate,
You can hear me?
Yeah, what I would recommend you do is turn off, in the cases where you think your connection is bad, turn off your video and then speak, so that the video doesn't interfere with your audio. So go ahead and turn off your video just while you're speaking, and then go ahead. Go ahead, Nate.
All right, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I was talking about how the first story we heard from Leroy on how he had to deal with a father who left the mom to find someone else, and then he brought the other mom that he found on in the same house as him with his mom that got left. So they were all in the household. Kind of, I know people who had the experience their dad leaving them. And so, I saw that relatable and how, it could be tough times for people.
Right. So in other words,
but to add on, basically,
go ahead, Nate.
Oh, keep going. Like what else? Yeah, basically like to keep on for the single mom to still put up, and, still have to go through many children, having to have a mouth to get fed, is what blows me, because like moms out here are tough, and the kids, we gotta love more at the end of the day because they're there for us at all times and really do care.
Mm-hmm. Nate, is that true for in your own family, that your mom has kind of been the major provider for you and your siblings?
Oh, no, not my side. I said I heard, I done spoke with a lot of people who done had to deal with similar problems. I don't go through the same problem.
Yeah.
I had my mom and dad.
Yeah. Tennille. Yeah, thanks, Nate. Tennille, who is from Trinidad and Tobago, and whose story you're going to hear in a few moments. Tennille, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to thank all the storytellers, but I had like just 3 questions. One for Itai, if his question was he the father in the story, or was he the son of the father? That's one. For Chloe, I wanted to ask her, how was her interaction with her father when she met him after the surgery? And for Tadawi, I wanted to ask if it was depression that the brother died from when he had autism.
So let's go in that order of your questions. Itai first. Itai, did you hear the question, and can you answer?
Yeah, I can answer that. It's someone whom I know was used to work for the government.
Right. And Tennille, your second question was for who again?
Chloe.
Chloe.
Yeah, seeing my father after he came back was interesting. As he was still recovering, he didn't really say much and was still kind of like in pain and was kind of numb still. But over time, he gradually got better and he gradually kind of found himself again. So it got better. Yeah.
And your last question again was for?
Tadiwa.
Tadiwa. Tadiwa has a somewhat poor connection, internet connection. So I'm wondering, Tadiwa, can you hear us? I'm trying to see if she's here. She may not be with us, unfortunately. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, the connection for some people, depending on their country, is quite weak. So they're trying to rejoin and reconnect on a perpetual basis, which is why you see sometimes the reconnect button or the connection button popping up on my screen. So Tadiwa, unfortunately, I think what I would recommend, Tennille, is ask your question in the Zoom if you haven't already done so, and hopefully if she's able to, she'll respond. Clearly, Tadiwa's story is a really powerful and poignant one, in part because it's about suicide, and a suicide that broke her family and split them apart. And so, yeah, and it's also in her delivery because she is soft-spoken. There's something powerful about really that still moves me every time I hear it, and it's hard to listen to. But Rosella, and then Yaz.
Yeah, but even to say thank you for the storytellers, because each story was just amazing and I saw power in it. I appreciate a lot Chloe's story, especially the end part, because I thought the message part was really strong. How health issues can really have an impact on families, and even how the health system has an impact, of course, on families, and even how the contextual economic situation of a country can even have an impact on families. So I liked even the comparison that was in the story between the US and Iran, and how it can change the dynamics of life of people. Someone that received the kidney, someone that had to solve the kidney. So it was interesting to see this comparison, and then this personally made me think how all these elements, economical and all these aspects, can really have an impact on families. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Rosella, I appreciate the fact that you are trying to make these connections between these different stories, right? And you're recognizing that the political and economic context is impacting family life, sometimes in dramatic ways, in life-saving ways or life-taking ways. Yaz, who's joining us from Morocco.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
and Rosella was from Italy, so I'm trying to give you a sense of where people are coming from. Go ahead, Yaz.
Yeah, no, I wanted to talk about like Sadiwa's story because I understand that like from certain cultures, and I think even around the world, like talking about mental health is not something that is kind of fought for, and I think that people not everyone like necessarily values it, but it's such like an important thing. And I think I really felt bad for like her family story, and as I know, for example, like a huge part about like Africa and in general is that like, we're very like family oriented, we're very group oriented. So like my question is like I want to ask her like how has that like impacted her, and if has it in any way like helped like you Tadiwa kind of seek your own mental like health and see like doctors, or have you ever felt like, because I know like you really care about your family and you really want to reconnect with them, like have you found any opportunities to maybe use this to like try to reconnect with them at any level? Thank you.
And again, I think that Tadiwa is not with us. She may interrupt me now, but I'm kind of scrolling through who is currently with us, and it looks like I don't see her here, unfortunately. Cynthia, who's likewise one of our storytellers, is and she's in Cameroon trying to reconnect now. So we have this kind of connection issue. But Yaz, please put like Tennille, if you could please put your question in the Zoom chat, that would be appreciated. It's something that we can raise with Tadiwa when we do reconnect with her. Any other comments or questions? A number of you are commenting in the and offering support in the Zoom chat, and we appreciate that. Okay, so if there are no other questions or comments, we are going to transition to the second group of storytellers. We have 4 storytellers here, and I'm going to put them again in the Zoom chat. Beltina, who is from Albania, is going to be talking about gender expectations. Justice, who's from Nigeria, is likewise going to be talking about gender expectations, or what is more precisely what is expected of males. Tennille has a story about family and independence, and Joe has a story about foster care and adoption. And for each of these, you're going to see their story via video. So I'm going to share my screen now and start with Beltina.
Laying over orange sheets on a tired memory. Do you see this baby boy? Why, that's me. I won't be coy. I had to be a boy in Albania. My hair, my clothes, my ways, all an insignia. Being a girl could bring trouble. Being a girl could mean being smuggled. I look today at this picture and see a child in the post-communist picture. I wish I could hold this baby girl. I wish I could lullaby her into a sweet swirl. I would tell her, I remember all the men that forced her gender, all the abuse that they inflicted didn't just bring blues, torture and trauma they imprinted. They said they could give me the peace one seeks, and they could take me in my need. And yet here I am, despite of what you've been through. I am, thanks to you. It can be now us two. It can be our debut. Don't you hide your brush anymore. Go play and unleash your core. It isn't easy, yes, that war forced a pain and cut you sore. Girls like you and I, forced to run under the gray sky. Yet girls like you and I, yes, we can find an ally. Yes, we found one on mother's thigh. Yes, we found one from a teacher's pie. Yes, we found one from a confident sigh. This is how the tacit tale goes, that of the girls who hide in clothes. This is how a child survives. That is how a woman thrives. But make no mistake, dear adults, the child in you still fights through. A child pulse, don't ignore. It can crawl into your front door. Don't ignore children's needs. Take good care of your future leads. Rise up and care for your inner child. Stand up and show up for your grandchild. It isn't easy, but once you try, your heart is filled as the moment flies by. As I'm about to be a mother of my own, I thank my mother and her backbone. As I will raise a girl of my own, I tremble worried, but I am home.
That was Beltina from Albania, talking about gender expectations. We're now going to hear from Justice from Nigeria, who is going to be talking about what is expected of males. Two of our interns worked on, I just want to recognize Nina and Chanel, two of our interns who worked on this translation, basically because Justice's accent is fairly thick, so we wanted to make sure that everybody could hear. So Diwa, by the way, is just trying to join us now, as is Justice. So we are going to hear Justice's story. So it's captioned at the bottom, you'll see. And you'll see that Anya, one of our
Justice,
interns,
we're
is
recording
helping.
right now. So go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Okay. It was early 1980s when my dad, Mr. Anderson, and my mom, Miss Blessing, met in a wedding ceremony in the city of Port Harcourt. And they later got married around late 1980s as husband and wife. They lived happily. They had their first child, a female. As time went on, they had their second child, female. Later, they also had their third child, female. And this brought about questions from friends, kinsmen, relatives, why the female child ought to, the female children ought to from my mom. Because it is believed in my place that a man who is married should have a male child. Because the male child stands as a next of kin, he stands as a chief mourner, he stands to be the one that will take over the family, he stands to be the only one to be a beneficiary of his father's wealth, his father's property, based on the customs and tradition of my people. So there was a huge quest from family relatives to know why my mom was having female children not true. As time went on, she had another child, and people were so curious to know. When they came around, it was a female child too. This got my dad upset. He wasn't happy. My dad wasn't happy. My mom too wasn't happy that she has given birth to another child, making it 4 females. This gave her so much concern. So as time went on, there was suggestion from family, friends, well-wishers to my dad to take another wife. That maybe my mom could be the reason why he had not had a male child. But my mom keep explaining that her own siblings have a male child for their husbands, shifting the blame to my dad. Why my dad also gave reasons that his own brothers and sisters too have make it. So who is to be blamed for the reason of them not having a male child? So my dad saw reasons of taking another wife, and later my mom and my other siblings not giving them attention, no fatherly love, no care, no paying of bills. So my mom was just struggling all alone, taking care of my siblings. So as time went on, around early 1995, around April, my mom had another child. So when my dad got the information from work, he was not bothered to go. So my mom called again, I've given birth in the clinic. My dad didn't even think of going. So when my mom now tested him, he's a male child. My dad went down there, lo and behold, it was a male child. That's how my family gave birth to me around April 1995. And the thing brought about great rejoicing, happiness, jubilation from north and crying of people, far and near. And my dad was happy that he has gotten a male child, thereby giving him that avenue to participate in the family affair, to be recognized as a kingsman, and my mom too, being recognized in the family and being able to follow up the activities of the family women based on the laws and traditions of my people. This made my mom give me the name Kachi, which means nobody is bigger than God. Though the name is a native name, my language name.
That's perfect. 4:15. Okay.
Right. So that was Justice's story. We are going on to Tennille, whom you've heard today, who is from Trinidad and Tobago, but currently based in Germany, if I remember correctly, if you're still there, and is going to be talking about family and independence.
Hold on, let me record. Okay, you can start now.
So this is a story all about how my life got shaken up somehow. I'll take a few minutes, just stay right there. I'm going to tell you how I came into the Northern Hemisphere. In Trinidad and Tobago, I was raised in the Caribbean is where I spent most of my days. Then I started feeling limited. I tried to act cool, even focused on trying to get my little brother through school. Then I saw an opportunity that seemed real good. My parents thought it was a bad idea, completely misunderstood. They thought I wasn't ready, I was unprepared.
They even questioned if I was ready for the world out there. But I knew I wasn't ready in every way. I was ready in every way. So I looked for more opportunities every single day. Then one day I prayed and asked God to exhibit his will for me so that I wouldn't miss it. I waited for a week and then God said yes, but I knew my parents would still protest. So I applied to universities in secret, got accepted and still couldn't speak it. So I packed my bags and hid it, enrolled in school, concealed it. Then I bought my ticket, but I won't tell you when because I had a panic attack after then. So 2 months before I left, I told my parents because any more time would have led to their interference. But they still pulled a hot trick. They tried all they could, even comparing me to my mother who abandoned her marriage and me at birth. Was history repeating itself, I was asked? Are you trying to make your father relive the heartache of the past? Because if anything happens to him, you'll be blamed because you'd rather pursue your own selfish gains. Do you even have enough money to pursue this master's study? Hi, no, you're looking for a man. That's what it is. These were the answers as if my life was a trivial quiz. But my foundation was solid. My focus was deep. I couldn't give up because I was playing for keeps. But I'll tell you a secret that I never thought I'd share. On the inside, I was terrified and trembling with fear. As if I was standing up against a great peerless army, my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, my stepmom, and daddy. But I'll share you a quote from Shannon Anno right before I go, when she said the only real battle in life is between hanging on and letting go. That it wasn't the move from A to B, but rather the process and the journey and what it built in me. A fortitude, a strength, a perseverance, and aggression to stand for myself in the midst of persuasion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Tennille. And the last story we're going to hear is from Joe, who is joining us from the USA, and he's going to be talking about foster care and adoption.
I was born and immediately placed in the foster care system. Although by design, foster care is supposed to be a temporary situation, for people like me, it can be a life sentence. The unintentional trauma permeating through that system is simply just not temporary. Right now, there are over 400,000 children in foster care in the United States, with 117,000 waiting to be adopted. And those numbers don't account for those children who are free to be adopted, but have given up on an institution that is supposed to be an entitlement of birth. Family. There I was in a system that no matter how hard they tried, was never going to be able to offer me the stability that a child needs to survive. The system simply has no heartbeat and yet seeks to decide for, dictate to, and distribute all the precious heartbeats of those trapped inside. All because we don't belong to someone. For those lucky enough to have a family, your potential for emotional health, high self-esteem, greater resilience, a well-defined identity, higher social competence, the ability to handle stress is just so much greater. When you know where you come from, and more importantly, when you know where you belong, your potential for growth is limitless. Luckily for me, my life's path crossed with a teacher and a coach who took the time and effort to see me. He gave me messages contrary to the ones that I was receiving at home, contrary to the ones that I was receiving from society, and contrary to the ones that I was creating in my own mind. All I can say is that whatever fate was watching over me, it gave me the courage to believe in him. And there it was, the shift from believing in no one to believing in him to believing in me because he believed in me. That lesson became clearer and clearer as I navigated my life's journey. And even though single, when the time was right and purposeful, it was my turn. It was too precious a gift to keep to myself. And so then I opened my heart and I opened my doors to my first baby boy who had just turned 17. Xavier arrived, and all the things I knew I wanted as a child, I saw live out in him. I was addicted, in love with love, and filled with the power of what hope provides. Jonathan arrived at age 14, followed by then Ronnie, who was 13, and then came Carmel, who was 20, and then Cameron and Sincere, who were both 12, and then John and then Trenton, who were both 17. 8 young heartbeats released from the system that held them captive. Now they were free to belong to something that was uniquely theirs. We, as strangers, freely decided that we were more than the sum of our experiences, and what we needed more than anything was family. Now, none of this erased any of our experiences, good or bad, and it certainly was not always easy. But we now know where we belong. We now know who we belong to. And we now know that this is forever. Family, and only family, saved us all.
Awesome. So let's turn to discussion. These were some powerful stories, really well told. And so questions that you guys have, please, again, raise your hand using the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. And we will proceed from those. And if you have any questions, I will do my best. If you post any questions to the Zoom chat, I'll do my best to come to them. Sammy first, who's joining us from Pakistan.
Hello, thank you so much, all of you, for giving us time, and I'm very thankful to all of the storytellers. So coming towards the Belle, she was like, I'm just giving some kind of my feelings to these storytellers. Like she took it the next level by taking like take good care of your child, and like in a metaphorical way, she reflects the whole story surrounded by her. It was very interesting. For justice from Nigeria, people, it was a bit humorous, like he used that people were so curious about the fourth time, and that is a male child. So it was really a grabbing point that people, the attractions of audience, he grabbed it. Yeah, and this is, I'm just asking this question from justice, like, I was considering that it happens only in Pakistan to have a stereotypical approach towards female, that why they don't have male childs. So I'm curious that I'm wondering that in Nigeria, it's also happened there that they like they also take some stereotypical mindset towards females by not having a male child. So this is a question, right? And the last one for Tenile, this is just on another peak, family and independence, the cool start and the rhyme and the rhythm. It was amazing. Just this, like, I don't have any say to this one. And the last one is about joy, the foster and independence. So basically, Joy have given me a message. And I really asked this question from him that he said that like he's giving the message to be always believe in yourself. So there's a quotation that live to believed, live to believed. So and at the end he said that family and only family hold you. So hats off, that's too good. Thank you.
Okay. Great, Sammy. I think your first question was directed towards Justice for his story from Nigeria. Unfortunately, I don't think Justice is with us. I don't think his connection, unless you hear him. So instead, I'm wondering if Chirunim, who is also from Nigeria and is actually a friend of Justice's, can speak to the question that Sammy had. Justice, the question was about kind of making sense of why is it, if I understand Sammy correctly, why is it that women essentially, or girls, are not treated the same way as boys in families? And I gather there's this stress that accordingly goes with that if a woman has a lot of female children and doesn't bear a male child. So Chirunim, if you could go ahead and kind of enlighten us, help inform us.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, and then I just noticed Justice is with us, but Chirunim, go first and then Justice.
Actually, it's because of a lot of factors, but mostly inheritance. When a man dies, his properties and everything he achieved when he was alive is transferred to his son and not to daughters or to females. You understand? Like only a man, only a boy has the cultural right of inheritance.
Right. And Justice, I don't know if you can speak to this. Go ahead if you're able to.
Okay. In line with what Chinoron said, because here in my place, it is believed that whatever a man owns, a man's wealth, his properties, can only be inherited by the male child, because they feel that the girl child will probably be married, and once she's married, she will move to the husband's place, bearing the husband's name. So if she's entitled or if she receives the father's property, she's likely to move with it to the husband's place, thereby making the husband be part of it or become the owner of the father's property, and the father's name will go. So it's only a male child here that is entitled of the father's property.
Okay.
And they are also seen to stand as chief mourner. A gay child doesn't bury the dad or the mom. A gay child is not entitled of any dividends when it comes to the father's wealth.
Okay. Justice, how did your sisters, you had 4 sisters before you, how did they feel about this this focus on boys and having a boy who inherits everything? How did they react to that, your sisters? And I gather, I mean, you shared with us at some point that your mom considered committing suicide because she had not born a boy. So clearly your mother was distraught and was upset, but I'm wondering how your sisters felt about this.
Okay, like I have 4 sisters who are older than me. Like currently, they are happy that they have a brother, a male child amongst them. Reason being that they wouldn't want an external person, probably my uncle or my cousins, who are not of the same father and mother with them, inheriting their father's properties. So they are comfortable with that. They're okay with that, in as much as it is their own direct brother, the same father, the same mother.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Justice. We're gonna go to Gustavo and then Leroy. Gustavo, who's from Costa Rica, but joining us from the United States.
Thank you, Paul. I have a general comment and a specific question. My general comment, it's about how, fulfilling society's expectations, because I see here that, being born a woman from a father who wants a baby boy, or being raised in the foster care system, or being born with a mental health condition, feels like this segment of stories, the second segment of stories, show that some issues affecting families around the world came from trying to fulfill society's expectations more than the family itself. And I have a specific question for Beltina, and it's about, you mentioned about your school teachers being part of your supports. And I was wondering, like, how was back in Albania going to school, trying to pass as a boy, and like, did they know, did your teachers know, and the other kids at school, do they know what was going on? And just want to know more about how it's growing up.
Beltina.
Thank you, Gustavo. My impression is that they all know. It's kind of, you don't really talk about it. The culture is such, at least at the time, is that it's implied, and you don't ask too many questions because you will find out some pretty nasty stuff. So there isn't much probing in that sense. I also moved a lot. I've lived in different countries. When I left, I only went to school in Albania for about 4 months in elementary school. And then I just had to move continuously. But I always had a teacher. In all the countries I've been, I always had a teacher. And I think we all do that, would just provide that extra support, and it would make all the difference.
Beltina, I actually was not clear on why it was you had to dress as a boy. I forgot. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I had to dress as a boy because it's not safe. It wasn't as safe to be a girl at that time in Albania. There was a lot of, we're speaking about the spillover of the Yugoslav wars at the end of the 1990s. There was a lot of civil unrest, chaos, and so forth. And it was just, it was dangerous. And so my grandma and my mom made this decision. And my mom actually also, she looked very much like a man. And we made sure that we looked every bit, both in terms of dressing and behaving and kind of running errands. We made sure that we looked our part in that sense.
Mm-hmm. And so it was because of kind of larger social political unrest that kind of forced you to appear as a male with all kinds of consequences.
Another layer that, just for the purpose of the story, but another layer is that my kind of related to another story that was said here, is that my biological father wanted a boy. And when I was first born, he kind of, the thing that impacts me is that he had thrown me away literally into a river a little bit right after birth. And so with that came the decision to run away. And so that was another layer in order to hide from kind of that family side, that wanted to look after us, get us, and all that.
If I remember, if I'm understanding you correctly, he threw you into the river because you were a girl, and he didn't want a girl. Yeah.
He and I hear from other stories, right? There's this wish that a boy being born is better than a girl somehow, right?
Okay. Thank you. And Leroy, then to Neil.
Yeah, my comment will be addressed to Justin Oyekachi, and I will also be asking him questions. I hope you're getting me.
Yes.
All right. So first day I will make comment. This issue of boy child living in charge of his father's property, and that of sustaining the family lineage is African culture that is all around countries in Africa, including Liberia. And but after some other families get to realize that this is actually affecting the family, they decided to, confront the government and other traditional leaders to see how best they can limit it or minimize the use of those things to, against the family. So actually, that's the reason why most family name boys to be in the family, to sustain the lineage of the family, that is to carry the last name of your father, so that your children too can carry the same last name of your father, so that his name will not die completely. That's the number one reason for boy child being most needed in Africa. Then the next one has to do with achieving or living in charge of the entire property. But then my question now to Justin, is, Mr. Oyekachi, how are you fighting this in your country? Or what are you people doing as a country to see how best you can minimize this so that it can continue to the next generation?
Justice, I don't know if you understood the question, and perhaps likewise Chirunim, who's from Nigeria, can contribute, but Justice first.
Okay, I understood the question very clear. Yeah, in the course of this, so many civil society organizations has really been making moves as regards to it, and River State government, because I'm from River State in Nigeria, River State government is also on it. There's a bill currently in the River State House of Assembly to see how a female child, a girl child, can be entitled to her father's property.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
And Chirunim, did you want to contribute to an answer as to how to overcome, I guess, Leroy's questions, how to overcome this issue of males being preferenced?
I think personally, a little bit of kind of, but I don't want to fight it because I am an African, and so I actually don't want to fight it. It's what we believe in. Yeah, this is it.
Okay. Yep. So for you, it's not an issue. And by the way, I think you're the oldest son in your family, if I remember correctly. But for you, it's not an issue. It's a tradition that needs to be respected in Africa.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Tennille and then Esma.
Mm-hmm. I just had 3 questions. One was for Beltina. I wanted to ask her, how was the transition for her from having acted like a boy to now acting like a girl? Like, I understand it would be like a wardrobe like transition, but was it like a mental transition for her as well? And like, at what age did she have to do that change? And one to Justice, does he have any siblings after him, or is he the last? And then to Joe, I wanted to ask him, how has him being a foster kid affected his parenting style now that you're a foster parent versus a parent who was not in a foster system?
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's go with those questions in that order. So Beltina.
Yeah, thank you, Tennille. That's an interesting question. It was definitely a subtle transition. Nowadays I really define myself as a tomboy in a way, and I wonder if it's connected to that, right? I don't think I've done much transition in terms of clothing. I still, again, I still wear more or less I guess I would call it unisex stuff. So it doesn't really affect me in a negative way. I actually love that part of myself, both the seeing at the picture, but then, you know, holding on to that piece because it means so much to me.
Your second question to Neil, if I remember, was for who? And Justice and
yeah, Joe.
that's right. And if there are any children that came after you, Justice, or are you the last child?
I have 2 other siblings after me, 1 male, 1 female.
Okay. And by the way, Joe Tolles had a good question, which is what happens in a family in Nigeria where there are only females? Who gets the property?
Okay, in that case, in a family where there is females, if by virtue of things the mom dies, the father of the house dies, he is going to be buried by his immediate younger brother, if he has. If he doesn't, then he will be buried by his immediate elder brother. And anybody who buries him is entitled of all his properties.
Gotcha. So it basically goes to his brothers or another male they can find in the family.
Yes. One, not all. The person who stands as the chief mourner, the person who stands to bury him, all the property goes to him. So it is left for the person to share the property with other of his brothers or not. So it goes directly to the immediate younger, if he has. If he doesn't, then it goes to the immediate elder brother.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks, Justice, for that. And Tennille, your last question was for whom and what was the question? I can't remember. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It was for Joe. Yeah, and how being a parent who was previously in the foster system, now that he has kids who are foster kids, how did it affect his parenting styles, like versus a parent who wasn't in the foster system?
It's a very good question. And it's also, I think, heightened because I'm also single. And an extension of that question is, how do kids who have not had a father figure at the youngest, age 12, sort of interact with a male figure who's coming in to be a father? The only thing that I can say in short is that my goal is to be the parent that I wish I had, right? So I don't think I'm at any more disadvantage from somebody who's having children of their own, right? Everybody reads books and they talk to everybody, but when the child comes, those things aren't very helpful at all. My bigger issue is that I have kids who are coming into my home that have sometimes, most of the times, unrealistic expectations of what a father and a son's relationship is about. So I often say, I mean, we have problems, right? We don't know in general what to do with holidays, right? None of us really celebrated holidays like Christmas in a family setting. And so the biggest holiday, which is always an issue, is Father's Day. I remember once that I got in my car and I drove away. I was mad because nobody said anything to me for Father's Day. And then, I got a couple of miles away and I was like, of course they didn't say anything about Father's Day. My expectation. So what has had to happen is that we've had to change our expectations and sort of build relationships that are new, and they continue to be new because a lot of the interaction that we have, the new adventures that they find themselves in, or the adventures that I find myself in, often brush up against what I call the sitcom vision of family. We don't settle things in a half an hour, right? We don't have a group hug, and it's not what we the images that the society places on family they're very strong. And so there's these just really unrealistic expectations, and that's sort of our template. And we've had to push back against that when we have to deal with our own expectations. I mean, this has been a mission of mine, and I recently came out of retirement to become part of an agency that's goal is to make sure that no child leaves foster care without being connected to a forever home, either through adoption or moral adoption, or just be there for. So that the agency that I've been led to, and my feeling is that family is the cure to adoption, not independent living programs, not an adoption stipend, because those things that they throw at the system never work. They're not meant to work. And so family is the answer. So if anybody wants to know any kids that they want to adopt, just let me know.
And by the way, so Joe, feel free to share. You Got to Believe is the name of the organization that Joe works with now, and has been in this advocacy for kids in foster care getting adopted by, as he calls it, forever families. So feel free to post that, share that to the Zoom chat, as well as your own foundation, the Joe Tolles Foundation, that he has to wrestle with this issue. We're at time, but I'm gonna, do we have quick questions from Tadiwa and Esma? We'll take them, but I also need to take a photo, and actually I should probably do that now before we before I forget. I'd like to take photo of everybody. So for those of you who have cameras off, if you could turn those cameras on. If you happen to have family members near you, or friends, in my case, please, by all means, bring them into the picture. We'd love to see more family members. We appreciate those of you who, those of you like Chirunim and Itai and others and Leroy, who are bringing family members into this. So what I'm going to do is on 3, I'll ask you to smile. On 3, 1, 2, 3, smile. Fantastic. And I'm going to take just one other photo because we've got actually 2 panes of people, two pages of people here. On 3, if you could smile and turn on your cameras. So Elise, Kate, Hannah, and my own mother, who might be struggling to figure out where the view button is. 3, 1, 2, 3, smile. Fantastic. Thank you. And so let's finish with Esma and Tadiwa. Esma, quick questions, if you would. Esma, who is joining us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Europe, Georgia and Europe. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for this introduction. Anyways, no, what I want to say is that the good speaker is the one who really inspires you to remember your own similar stories. And I want to remember 2 similar stories to Tennille's and Belle's, I guess. And it is that my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, used to tell my father always that if he leaves her and, let's say, moves to another city or another town for work or study purposes, she was always telling him that she would die. And this was really stressful for him, and he was very much attached to her, and it was huge stress when he needed to move. And then the second one, with what Belle had said, I didn't have to change, let's say, my gender, but and behave like a boy or something. But when I would have to go to Russia for treatment, I had to hide that I was Georgian. So I mean, I spoke Russian without an accent, so that was not a problem. But like, even for example, once we were on this train, and somebody, like random, another passenger, was checking on my knowledge of school books, and because I was not schooled in Russia, I of course did not know like the books that they read there as children. And I really like, I didn't, let's say, pass the test, and it seemed, I mean, they almost got that I actually was not schooled in Russia. And yeah, anyway, so it's very, very particular for our part of the world that we have to pretend a lot. And this experience in childhood, it's kind of traumatic, I can say. When you have to deny your identity, you have to hide it, and you know that with certain people you can reveal it and with others you cannot.
Yeah, thanks, Esma, because that seems to be a current in a lot of this, right? And I think of Joe's story. In some sense, you want to hide, or you can't hide from a certain identity, and there are pressures and judgments placed on you that can be really harmful, if not deadly. So, Tadiwa, you have the last word. Tadiwa from Zimbabwe, who had that really touching and sad story.
Okay, thank you. I have a question to Joe, directed to Joe. I just wanted to ask what inspired him to share his story.
It took a very long time. I was probably in my mid-30s. I was working at a camp, which had to do with track and field, which is another part of my life. And when I got to the camp, there was a big thing going on. The administration was on the phone with the father, who was very angry, and just like threatening to sue. And I walked up and I found out what was going on was its father, son was at the camp, but the father didn't give him permission to be there. But the kid was in foster care. The father didn't have the right to stop him from going. But what I saw was his face, and it just broke my heart that this was sort of an elite camp. All the athletes, like he was outed. I mean, to your point, Paul, that everybody knew then that this poor kid. And I was there to talk about weight training, and at night, and I went around to the whole camp, and everybody in the camp was supposed to be part of this. So he was my motivation. So I went back to my camp room and I ripped up everything that I was going to talk about. And I decided that I was going to tell my story. And everybody there thought of me as, I was a very good runner, and people knew me from my running. That knew nothing about this. And so I decided for him that I was going to share that I had a similar story. And it was that one boy that needed somebody at that moment. And so I haven't stopped talking about my story since then, but it took me well into my adulthood before I decided to share any of it with anybody.
Wow. Joe, thanks to you for doing that for that athlete, to support him. So thank you, everybody. This has been awesome. We have, and really moving, and I try to kind of like contain my emotions, because I'm supposed to be moderating this, not falling apart and tearing up and so on, but it's really moving. And I've as somebody who's heard you guys go through this transformation in your storytelling abilities, it's just remarkable. Sometimes I'm like, yesterday I was looking at Itai's story, and I was just shocked at how much he's improved in his storytelling. And so for some of you, you may consider storytelling as part of your future. We certainly want to cultivate that in you. You really, in some of your cases, it's like discovering this ability that you guys have, and we want to help you develop it as family diplomats, and get your story out to the wider world. So for those of you who are new to this, we encourage you. There are just a few people that I don't recognize here, but you are encouraged to participate. We will be finishing up this training October 30th. And then we will actually, Joe Tolles will be continuing in some fashion with some people who want to continue developing their storytelling skills. But we will continue with a new training and a further development, and then also bringing in new storytellers, family diplomats, this coming year, 2023, starting sometime around May. But if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. And I look forward to seeing all of you, hopefully next Sunday, for the last of our stories. I'm going to share my screen briefly and show you the people who are performing or whose stories we're going to hear next Sunday. And that includes Cynthia from Cameroon, who's going to be talking about ability and disability. Gustavo, who's with us, who is going to be talking about migration and opportunity. Mulba from Liberia, about family and civil war. And Nusrat and Sami, who are joining us respectively from Bangladesh and Pakistan, who are going to be talking about climate change. Unfortunately, speaking of which, Nusrat has been communicating with us that there is a massive cyclone coming towards Bangladesh that might actually affect her ability to participate with us next Sunday. So we're hoping at least to get her story recorded prior so we can share it with you, but that will only underscore how poignant and pressing this issue is of climate change in the world. And Mohammed, who fled Afghanistan, moved to Iran, and is now facing the social political turmoil in in Iran. He's in the capital city of Tehran. We will at least hear his recorded story, if all goes well, about his story of being a refugee from a refugee family from escaping Afghanistan. So I think I've covered everybody here. I'm trying to make sure. Oh, and I'm sorry, Chidunim. Yes.
And me as well.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and Esma. So Chidunim from Nigeria, he's going to be talking about a story of human trafficking, which is kind of shocking, but is a story to be told nonetheless. And Esma, who is with us, who is going to be talking about belonging. So you'll hear more about Esma this coming Sunday. Did I miss anybody else? Okay. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you for sticking around for an additional few minutes. We'll see you next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. See you.